Hey everybody, it's Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. We got to talk about this severe weather risk tomorrow. Now the good news for the Carolinas, not so good news to our west. The worst weather is going to be over the middle Mississippi and Tennessee river valleys today, tonight, and early tomorrow. But some of this is going to get into the western Carolinas, and there's some uncertainty on how much energy is going to be left over as this system pushes through. So let me show you where the system is right now, because this is actually our system here. It's moving into the plains, and what's happening is warm, humid air is starting to surge up ahead of that system. Now, we do have scattered showers in the Carolinas today. Nothing severe, but there's temperatures right now, generally looking in the 40s and 50s. We will warm up today. Basically, it's this warm front. It looks like a warm front now, but this will be a warm front that's coming up from the south. And this warm front right here is actually going to be moving this direction. So that's going to warm us up overnight, but it's also going to bring us a chance of a few scattered showers. So let's get into the details of the severe weather risk for today. All right, let's get right to the severe weather outlook today. We'll put the outlook on here. You could see this big area of severe weather risk right in the middle of the country. So you're talking from parts of Illinois, Indiana, down into Louisiana. So you kind of see the highlighted area, and it kind of shows you, because basically you're going to have low pressure here. Here's a cold front. Here's a warm front. That's the reason you have this type of shape to the system. Now, categorically, this just means the probability of all severe weather. Let's look at the probability of tornadoes. So you've got a 2, a 5, and a 10% chance in that highlighted area. And I just tweeted out earlier a NATOcast, which is a really cool blending tool of all the model guidance. It has a pretty interesting little scenario where right in here, whoops, let me grab my cursor here. Right in here, we've got a highlighted area. So that area north of Memphis, the Region 8 area of northeastern Arkansas into the Paducah area, is an area we're going to have to watch pretty carefully today. So let's go back to the probabilities of severe weather for tomorrow. This is going into Saturday. So you see this Saturday risk, which does include a big chunk of the Carolinas, in the western Carolinas, I should say. You say Charlotte to Winston to Greensboro. But you see how this threat is still lingering back to the west. Well, you're probably wondering, well, why is that, Brad? Well, because this is going to happen overnight. This is how slow the system is. So the severe weather ongoing to the west is still only going to be here by the early morning hours on Saturday. So we'll still have a risk of severe storms from the Ohio Valley down to Nashville, and the storms are weakening as they push east, but there might be enough left that we see some severe weather. And the tornado probability is much lower here. The yellow is 2%, and the brown is the 5% risk. So they go down overall, but the areas of concern are right there. And I'm going to highlight this again with just the regular probabilities. That's our risk for severe storms for Saturday. And by Sunday, the system's gone. There's no severe risk at all. So let's get into the futurecast. All right, so let's look at the futurecast here. It kind of looks like the radar and satellite today. This is, by the way, the high resolution rapid refresh. So we run this guidance very frequently, so we get constant updates on this. So you see, we go into the afternoon hours. We start to see a pretty good snowstorm up here for parts of the Midwest too. So that's in the part of the system that's interesting. But you start to see some of the cells that develop this afternoon and really this evening. Look at the time frame. This is 7 o'clock Eastern time. So this is going to be, 6 o'clock Central. But right in there, you're seeing some of these cells, especially right in here and in here, and then down in here. So this is going to be tough for those folks to the west. This is going to be during the dark. It's going to be overnight that these storms are popping up. You can see this is 9 p.m. Eastern time. And we go through time. We're going to midnight. And you can see the storms really developing in this line from Indianapolis down to Memphis. Further south, there's some uncertainty about the development, but you kind of get the idea. And then the pre-dawn hours, we get to 4 o'clock in the morning. This is why you saw that severe weather risk kind of highlighted just to the west of us, because this will be happening during the overnight hours right in here. So that's why you saw that, that medium risk there. So let's go in closer, because this is now getting closer to Saturday morning. This is 6 a.m., 7, 7:30. So you see the storms are starting to weaken a little bit, but they're starting to come back to life a little bit here from around Huntsville, Alabama up to Knoxville. We'll go into the 12 p.m. hour. And again, so outdoor planning purposes tomorrow, just remember, most of the day, you're probably going to be okay east of the mountains until this line gets here later in the day. Go to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, the line starts moving east. But there are signs it's weakening. But I also see signs, and I'll talk about this in a minute, of these little bowing segments. You kind of see these in the leading edge here. These bows are like a bow and arrow. Think about a bow and arrow. The arrow would be through there, the bow. These are usually indications of strong straight line winds. So that's an indication we'll have to watch. And then on the bookends of these little bows, you sometimes can get rotation. So I don't think it's a huge tornado risk. It's what we call non-zero, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. This really, to me, looks like straight line winds as it pushes east. And then you see by the evening, the rain's moving in, but that looks like a much weaker system. The rain behind it is not going to be severe. It's going to be this leading edge that we're most concerned about. Some much needed rain, though, as we go into early Sunday morning. And then everyone worried about Sunday. This front is long gone by the time you wake up. It's actually going to be off the coast by mid-morning on Sunday. So let's go back to the beginning. We'll loop this real quickly. And I'm going to stop it right here. I'm going to back up because one of the things I'm looking at is the parameters ahead of this. What's the wind shear look like? We do have a ton of wind shear. There's more wind shear than instability, which means there's lots of wind energy coming in. The winds are changing direction and speed pretty rapidly. But we don't have a lot of heat and humidity because, let's be honest, it's December. Even in this really warm December setup, it's not the kind of heat and humidity that's going to be happening to the west. So we got to look at some different products here to kind of see what's going on. Okay, so this is a parameter you may have heard me refer to before, thunderstorm fuel or CAPE. Okay, it's off the charts to our west. Look at that. I mean, that's off the charts for this time of the year. The reds are 2,000, 2,500 joules per kilogram. And just for, you don't need to know exactly what these numbers mean, but just know once you get to about 1,000 and above, that's really, really high. So this 1,000 up here is a big deal. So that would be something we would watch for anywhere we see 1,000, which is the yellow that you see up in here. But this time of year, 500 to 750 can be problematic just because you can overcome the lack of fuel with a whole bunch of wind shear. If you think about it like as a fire, you may not have the fuel, but you may have tons of wind and oxygen to feed the fire. So you can make up for a lack of other things here if you have so much of another ingredient. And in this case, it's wind shear. But the good news is the CAPE or the thunderstorm fuel is really weak. This is going into Saturday morning. You see how it kind of falls apart. But the areas of biggest concern are where you're down here in Atlanta up to Greenville, where you see it kind of spike. And then right here around 3, 4 in the afternoon, you see this area of green. That's 500 to 750. There's nothing in the spring. Certainly compared to what's going on to our west, that's not that big of a deal. But there is some there. And if you look at the time frame, it's that mid to late afternoon, which you expect that's peak heating. So let's real quickly take a look at a couple other things. That CAPE again, this is going to look at updraft helicity. What storms could rotate. Doesn't mean tornadoes, just means the storm could have rotation in it. You see the rotational tracks coming into the mountains and then kind of falling apart, except for this one kind of northeast of Charlotte. It's kind of an anomaly, but overall, they weaken. You see how that weakens as they push in from the west. And if we look at the tornado parameter, which are ingredients you would need for tornadic storms, you see them moving into the mountains, and then this little narrow strip right around this time frame is right around 5 o'clock tomorrow to 6 o'clock, and then it falls apart. So you kind of see the area. If I'm worried about severe weather tomorrow in our area, I'm thinking it's going to be the upstate of South Carolina, that area right in there. So that in particular would be an area that I would watch tomorrow, and just mainly because that's, if you look at this again, that's kind of the area. The ingredients are more favorable for severe weather right in this area here. Now, to the north, can never rule out an isolated severe risk, but I do think this area to the south will be the area to watch. So that's just a quick update. I will do an update tomorrow morning, probably at some point, but just stay weather aware on Saturday, especially the further west you are in the Carolinas, because some of these storms could be strong, and it is December, which can take you a little bit off guard.